it looks like something else. So it looks like we're fighting about money, but in actual fact, what we're fighting about a lot of the time is we've lost our way with each other. So we just don't know how to connect. And I think as you go through marriage, the challenge is how do you stay connected by continually getting to know who your partner is as they continue to grow, change and evolve.
Welcome to Separate Bathrooms. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record this podcast, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present. Welcome to Separate Bathrooms. I'm Cam Daddo. This is my wife,
Ali Daddo.
And we've got a great start to the year.
We do. We're excited to have this couple on. It's slightly unusual in a sense, these two. They work together. They're relationship therapists. They're psychologists. They've built a business together. So that's going to be really interesting to talk to them about how they work together in that sense and where their work takes them. You know, do they take it home with them? And is there ever conflict within their space of their work?
Yes, and I'm actually looking forward to some, I don't know, I want to say hacks, but I don't like that term. But, you know, some advice and some tips on how to better navigate the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this is a perfect way to begin 2023.
Kerrie and Adrian Lumbewe, they run a business called Motivating Marriages, and it exists to see couples not just survive their relationships, but to thrive in it and be all the more better for having chosen love. Isn't that sweet?
It's great. It's
I
awesome.
love that.
Let's bring them into the bathroom, Kerrie and Adrian. Welcome, Adrian and Kerrie, to the bathroom.
Thanks, guys.
Look at you. You're a vision, you two. How are you?
Well, thank you.
We're going well. We're going well.
Are the both of you talking to us from your home or from your business?
Home office.
Home office. Very good. Obviously, you two work together. This is what we're curious about and to hear all about the work that both of you actually do. But we, whenever we get couples on, we always love to get their love story first, of course, because it's our favorite thing. So how did you two actually meet?
Do you want me to go?
Well, it depends which part of the story. So
we want the truth.
The truth. We actually officially met in prison. So that's how we met. And that's always a really great story to tell people who don't know that we're actually psychologists. It's nice to see their faces. Yeah.
the real story. Well, that is the real. Yeah, that's right. Well, the real story is that we actually. Well, I saw Kerrie 3 times actually. And one was when we were both at the same uni, but we were in different courses. But we had a crossover in one of the subjects there, and I saw her sort of sitting outside one of the lecture halls. She grabbed my attention, you know. I don't think she saw me though. So that was the first thing. Then secondly, we met at the same job interview in one of the prisons. We were going for the same position in one of the prisons there. So we met in the. Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, we met in the interview process, and so I was sitting there preparing for my interview. And this very polite gentleman comes up to offer me a glass of water while he was getting himself one, and I flatly refused because he was the competition. So I was
very
dead
nice
set on getting that job.
I thought it was nice.
He's very gentlemanly.
Was there something diabolical in the water?
No, I can assure you there was not. No, just good intentions there. So she refused. But anyway, so I ended up getting the job though. I'll just tell you guys that.
And I just have to say that is no indication of who's a better psychologist.
I can vouch for that too.
No competition here, sweetheart.
At all.
But then officially, we met in one of the prisons that we both worked at. We were colleagues. They're both psychologists in one of those Sydney prisons, and we just sort of met there, and the rest is history, as they say.
The rest is history. We met we worked close together, and probably one of the things that attracted us most to each other about each other was just how we both really love justice, not just justice for the clients that we were working with, but the injustice of the system that we were working in was something that was really challenging for both of us, and our hearts and our minds met over that, really. And that's been something that has been, just a bit of a solid rock throughout our life. We're pretty big justice seekers, and we like to do things right, and we like people to be honoured and respected and valued. And when we see that not happening, that's something that we always come back to and align on. So it's nice to have that value in common.
That's a really powerful connection to have, actually, because when your values match on such a deep level like that, that's a great connection to have. So I can understand why you were both so attracted to each other from that perspective alone. So not to mention you guys are very good looking. So
So Al's she's saying, "Do you want to ask? Do you want to ask?" So I thought you might have answered this question already, but so when you did see each other, was it love at first sight?
I definitely noticed Kerrie at uni because she had jet black hair, if you can believe that. Looking at her now, jet black hair. And so it really caught my attention. I thought, she looks very nice. But I didn't approach her or anything like that. But she definitely sort of stuck in my mind. And then when we met at the
prison,
the actual prison, we like the stuff we were talking about before. It was a very quick attraction because we found that we could just talk to each other. We could talk about meaningful things, connect emotionally on certain topics that Kerrie has just talked about. So it was quite easy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Very easy.
Do you think that's an actual thing, love at first sight, asking you to relationship experts?
Well, there's definitely components. I mean, science has shown us like the importance of the limerence effect. So things like that chemical attraction, lust is what people call it generally. And that's very real. So like we instinctively like the smells of certain types of people, and we instinctively feel opposed to the smells of certain types of people as well. And similarly, like we like the look of certain types of people, and other people we don't like the look of. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to lead to really long-lasting, healthy love relationships, but definitely I would agree that attraction at first sight is for sure an absolute thing.
I often say to my clients, that limerence is what brings us together, attracts us first, but love is what actually keeps us together. So when you say love at first sight, maybe it's limerence at first sight, maybe, I don't know, but after the limerence effect sort of dies down, then you can actually really work out whether are you really connected emotionally.
Right.
What is that word?
I've never heard that
limerence?
word before.
Limerence effect.
Limerence. I like that word. It kind of sounds like angelic. You know what I mean? It's got kind of this ethereal quality to it. I like that.
Yeah.
Is it the ENC part of it, like phosphorescence or?
Yeah, I think that might be it.
It's like a classier version of lust.
I was going to say, like most of us know about lust. You go, okay, I'm hot to trot.
Yeah.
So you dated for how long before the proposal?
18 months.
No, I think we were only dating about 11 months, but then we were friends for probably about 7 months beforehand.
Yeah. Yep. And Adrian, how'd that proposal go?
So it was very clear that we were going to, I was going to, pop the question, so to speak, and we'd gone and designed the ring together. So we'd done all that stuff together.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And Kerrie's very astute. She can read you just by looking at you. She's in the right job, so put it that way. So I had to try my real best to think about how to surprise her. And so we were going on this drive holiday up to Brisbane. I think it was, Brisbane. And at the beginning of the trip, I sort of said to her, "Look, Dal, I know that you really want to get engaged on this trip, but the ring's not ready. I called the guy and it's just not ready." Lo and behold, however, I'd already organised with the guy to have it done before we left, so I actually had it. I fooled her, and then when I ended up proposing on a, where were we? A caravan park, or just by the water, this dingy caravan park, and just one night, and I surprised her. So she thought it was a joke at first, but no, it wasn't. So,
it was a very good trick. We like to joke with each other quite a lot, so it was quite quite well done. And when I got the ring, it was dark when he proposed, so I didn't know if it was real. And I'm like, did you get this out of one of those bubblegum machines? Like, is it real?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, and then I was pretty horrified because I saw the size of the ring, and I'm not a jewelry person. And it's actually not that big, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, gee, I don't know if I could wear this, but it was lovely. It was lovely.
Well, I'm sorry, because it was too big or too small?
Too big, but it's not actually that big. Like, it's actually, I'm just not a jewelry person, so it was a bit sparkly, but I've got it now. It's fine.
So you've been working together for how many years?
Well, we've worked together for probably about 18 months. Maybe not even 18 months. So we didn't actually stay in the prison system for too much longer. So there was a lot going on there, and we decided to, for circumstances there, decided to leave the prison system. So we went off into different jobs for a short period of time. I went off to the Independent Commission Against Corruption to do some investigations work, and Adrian went off to the New South Wales Ombudsman and did some investigations work. So we had probably about probably about 12 months working separately before we then came back and started working together in private practice after we got married.
And how has that been? Are there highs and lows to it? And how do you sort of navigate your world doing that, working together?
We work very well together.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to say.
Yeah.
Very well. We've got the same types of goals.
Yeah.
Business-wise. And she comes up with a lot of ideas. She's the ideas person.
He's the executioner.
Yeah, she's the ideas
person. Okay, so you have your roles.
Yeah, very much clearly defined. And that's actually one of the things that we know about happy couples is they have really clearly defined roles in their relationship, not specifically gender roles, but just this is what I'm good at, this is what you're good at, let's work towards our strengths. And that's something that we do both personally and professionally quite a lot.
Do we do that?
Well, you are really good at taking out the rubbish.
Yeah. And barbecuing.
And I'm really good at cleaning the stovetop.
Sorry, guys. What it happened?
That's all you need, isn't it? That's all you need to do.
Yeah, it's little things. Sometimes I think we still get a bit stuck with thinking, is he going to do it? Is she going to do it? We probably have a bit of that. But I think we're fairly defined in our roles.
Defined?
I think fairly. Well, we have been. I think it's changed in the last couple of years, though. Since I've been so much busier, you had to sort of do more than you normally would.
We started writing a script together a couple of years ago, and that was an interesting flipping and flopping of like how do we do that? Do you guys share an office? Do you actually share a physical space, or are you in different rooms?
We're in different rooms, and I think that's one of the things people think, like, how do you work together? And we spend a lot of time together personally as well. We're like two peas in a pod. And I said, well, actually, we don't really spend a lot of time together at work. Like the role of a psychologist is actually really quite autonomous. You're in your room with your door closed with your clients for like 8 hours a day. So it's actually nice to have lunch together. I quite enjoy it. It's we don't actually spend heaps of time together. I think the biggest challenge we have had running businesses together, because we've got a couple of businesses, was very early on in our marriage we're quite perfectionistic, so we decided we were going to do everything. So book the clients in, do the accounts, do the clinical work. And at one point I'm sure our neighbours would have thought, gee, their marriage isn't going to last very long, when we were sitting downstairs trying to do the accounts, because I think we could have killed each other. And it came to a blow where Adrian just looked at me and said, Kerrie, one of two things has got to happen. You've either got to do this by yourself or I've got to do it by myself, but we can't do it together anymore. And I said, yep, you're right. You take it. And so from that point on, we divide and conquer a lot of things.
Are you able to turn off this sort of psychologist mind when you meet people or have dinner with friends, or is your mind always kind of analysing, the relationship as you're sitting there?
It's hard. It's hard to switch off.
Like, are you psychoanalyzing us right now?
No, it's off now. It's off. No, I have a very, very strict rule that, when we're driving home from the office, and we're about sort of 15 minutes away from home, so we drive home and in the car, and we're allowed to speak about anything about work in that drive home, but as soon as we pull into the to the garage, that's it. We need to stop.
I like that.
But it is sometimes hard to switch off.
And you try to keep it switched off everywhere, but I think when you've been doing the job for like 20 odd years, as is the case for anybody, it's hard to sort of separate. And I think we're so immersed in our work as well, both personally and professionally. Like it was a big step from going from being individual psychologists into being a couple that is couples therapists, you know, so that was quite a big step. And for us, I think, you know, honesty and transparency and living truth is very important. So we weren't going to go and become couples therapists if we couldn't live that out ourselves. So we live out what we teach and what we do in therapy in our life. So it does sometimes feel like the lines are a little bit hard to manage, but we do really try. We have no interest in analysing our friends and family.
What about celebrities though? Do you ever kind of read about a couple and then just look to each other and go, it's never going to make it?
Nah, we just don't. We don't, and we don't watch any reality TV. I think it's just too much.
You don't even watch maths?
Nah, no way.
I mean, surely that would be like a circus for you guys, wouldn't it? You'd be like,
it kills me. I just look at vulnerable people and what's happening to their hearts. I just can't. It kills me.
Yeah.
So I actually, I'm in the same place where you are. I look at that show and just go, oh my God, that person's really out there for looking for love, and you've got some dude who's come in from some other country and he's just ready to roll, you know, and move on, but get a little famous or something, and at the same time.
Yeah.
When you consider, you know, the pain and suffering people have gone through in their childhoods and maybe even traumas and everything like that, you sort of understand why they are the way they are, and the vulnerabilities come out, you know, in relationships, and they, you know, if you're already vulnerable inside, you can become hurt, you can get hurt, so you just try to protect yourself, and you know you can see that being played out in relationships and even on TV and reality TV and, you know, and everything like that. You can see it, and it is painful to see that, you know, and that people are suffering, but so that's why we try not to do that. You know,
and is that usually the case that people where today's problems come from? It is usually from a childhood wound.
It's really interesting. Like I think, like it's definitely the word attachment now is a fair big buzzword on social media, and it's really exciting that people are starting to learn about attachment theory. But attachment theory underpins most of what we do in psychology, and in a nutshell, it is about how, when we come into the world, do we attach to our primary caregivers, so mum and dad, and how are not only our physical needs met, but also our emotional needs for connection and understanding and support and compassion and love and safety. And so the research really tells us that what happens to us in early childhood, particularly the first 3 years of our life, which most of us don't remember, will begin to replicate itself in our adult romantic relationships. So if we have, unfortunately, an insecure attachment with our primary caregivers for one reason or another, through neglect, abuse, or various other things, then we're likely to then develop an insecure attachment style in our adult relationships and even parenting our own children. And so I think as psychologists, we just understand that the childhood stuff just underpins a hell of a lot of what we go through as adults. And in turn, in response to your question, Cam, it would definitely be affecting the way that we have relationships, marital relationships. Yeah.
What do you find in your practice is the biggest relationship, not so much red flag, but what tears couples apart the most?
If you boil it all down, it's emotional disconnection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you even with, say, for example, you know, there's been distrust or breach of confidence, affairs, whatever it is, and if you track it back, most often it's about the couple is emotionally disconnected somewhere down the track. And then there's what John Gottman says. I know you guys sort of follow John Gottman. It's like it starts a cascade towards separation, breakdown, divorce, etc., etc. So in a nutshell, it's emotional disconnection, really.
Yeah. And I think it probably, sort of extending on that, it looks like something else. So it looks like we're fighting about in-laws. It looks like we're fighting about sex. It looks like we're fighting about money. But in actual fact, what we're fighting about a lot of the time is we've lost our way with each other. So we just don't know how to connect. We don't know how to have like vulnerable conversations. And I think, as you go through marriage, the challenge is how do you stay connected by continually getting to know who your partner is as they continue to grow, change, and evolve. Because I think that's what we forget sometimes when we get married. We think, oh, I like this person right here, right now, and I like who they are and the way they look and the way they think, but we're forgetting that we're actually marrying a person who is in a constant state of evolution, change, and growth. And so if we don't continue, as Dr. Gottman says, to date one another and get to know one another, we're actually just going to lose our way. And it's not at all uncommon when we see people coming into couples therapy that they don't know who their partner is. They talk about being like ships in the night. We don't know each other. Send them out on a date night. They look at you and like, what are we going to talk about? Because they've got nothing to talk about, So, it looks like a lot of other things, but underneath it, I'd say the primary issue, I agree with you, is emotional disconnection and distance.
Oh, it's full on, isn't it? And I mean, Ali and I have been married for 31 years now, and I feel like we've been through a lot of variations of what you're talking about. And I know that as you're talking about that, my belly just flips, because we are dynamic and we do change, and it flips because of the fear of it comes back to fear, I think.
Yeah.
Fear of, I don't know, I'm not quite sure yet, but that stays with me, and for me, and hearing things like emotional detachment or, a lot of sort of therapized labels, they throw me off, and I've used them, guilty, but I've always used them maybe to keep distance with something or try and understand something better. But actually, the hard part for me is always getting back to, what's the truth of it without putting a flashy label on it, but to get to the real heart of the feeling. And to me, it often comes back down to fear of not being seen, or I don't know, just feeling alone.
Yeah.
Alone.
Absolutely, Cameron. What you're talking about there is what we call attachment fears, right? Attachment fears. So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
It is about fear. It's about fear of not belonging. It's not the fear about not feeling approved of or accepted by one another, right? And when we don't feel that we are accepted and we fear that stuff happening, then we go into our, that sort of very primal self-protective mode that we taught ourselves when we were, as a child. We taught ourselves how to survive, right, and through the so-called traumas of childhood. And we just go back to that. And when that happens and we don't effectively work through those things, such as those attachment fears, then it can tear the relationship apart.
Yeah.
And there's a really good sort of model of therapy that I'm not sure if you guys have heard it, called EFT, or Emotionally Focused Therapy, by Sue Johnson. She's another clinical psychologist over in the States. Over in the States. Or UK, she's from the UK, I think. And basically the premise of that is helping couples or individuals to actually identify what their fears are from childhood, because that is actually what gets triggered off when we have dysfunctional conflict in our adult relationships. We all go back, we revert back to our childhood state where we felt safest and how we protected ourselves as children. And that's right. So I totally agree about that fear.
Yeah.
So how can we be better at noticing when? I mean, because like I said, it's a dynamic thing, and you've noticed we're always changing and moving. How do you get better at noticing when things are sliding? Not in a great way.
I think the thing that's most important to understand is that, and it's very hard to do in the modern day, is that relationships take time. Like, we don't actually afford enough time to just sit and get to know one another and talk to one another, whether it's as couples or even with our own children, you know. And so to give people, I suppose, something to strive for, like the Gottman Institute talks about, there's a difference between happy couples and unhappy couples of about 6 hours a week, which is less than an hour a day. And if you check your social media usage, I reckon you can find the time. But it's time that you actually have to dedicate to your relationship. So that means like chatting with each other each day about like, how's your day been going? Like, what have you been stressed about? How can I support you? How can I comfort you in the day-to-day stresses? Making sure we share like fondness and admiration and affection with one another every day. But most importantly, like, let's sit down once a week. The Gottman Institute talks about having a State of the Union conversation, which is like having a meeting about your relationship. Like, what have we done well this week? How have we managed, you know, challenging things this week? And then it also provides a really safe space for us to say, and this is what hasn't been working for me, or this is my complaint for the week, and then gives each other the opportunity to say, like, what can I do to make you feel loved and supported this week? So, like, beautiful conversations like that really prevent the slide that you were talking about, Cam, if you just are very intentional about, you know, making sure you connect regularly. That can prevent the slide, I think, from occurring.
Oh, that's great. That's
and
very helpful.
It's simple. Like that's what I love. Okay, could you just, you know, I know it's hard to sort of put it in a nutshell, but could you just explain to the listeners what the Gottman Institute is? I know both of you are trained, what would you say, Gottman Institute
We're certified
practitioners?
Gottman therapists.
There you go. So if you could explain a little bit more about what that actually means.
So the Gottman Institute has been operating for over 4 decades now. Prior to their work and the work of Dr. Sue Johnson, who we referenced before, in the study of relationships, what we found was that couples, no matter where they went to go and get help, their relationships would get worse, not better. So even if they went to a therapist or their family, their relationships wouldn't get any better. The Gottman Institute is fantastic insofar as it's the first bunch of people that have actually stopped and paused and looked at what it takes to make a relationship work. So they've been instrumental in studying couples and doing what we call longitudinal research, following them up for decades after their initial study. And they've looked at couples in their environment. So they've actually looked at what it is that they do that makes their relationship work. And this has been described in their work, The 7 Principles That Make Marriage Work. So what we do as Gottman therapists using the Gottman method is we're teaching couples or unhappy couples what happy couples naturally do. Because we know that there are couples that are unhappy. We're staring down the barrel of around about a 50% divorce rate. But of those ones that are unhappy, there's also a bunch of people, not quite another 50%, I don't think, but there's a whole bunch of people that just innately know how to make relationships work. And you would know those people when you come across them. They're just those couples that everybody actually wants to be. They still hold hands when they're like 80 and still look into each other's eyes. And so the Gottman Institute, their method of therapy is all about teaching couples what happy couples are doing day in, day out that make their relationship go the distance. Probably not the neatest nutshell, but
no, that was great. And can you, Adrian, tell us what are some of the things that a happy couple does every day?
Yeah, so this is what Gottman calls the masters of relationships versus the unfortunate name of the disasters. So it's masters versus disasters of relationships.
You fall either side of that line, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We've had both.
But so masters, they first of all they do a lot of what Gottman calls small things often. Right? So it's not good enough to go through life together not connecting on a daily basis and then having those 1 or 2 really big gestures, you know, once or twice a year, because they mean nothing if you're not connecting constantly. So what Gottman suggests is small things often. And these are very, very simple things that anyone can do, and your listeners can start doing them right away. One of them is what he calls the 6-second kiss. And so that meaning that when you are greeting each other, when you finish work or you're saying goodbye in the morning, that you actually make physical contact, you kiss for 6 seconds. And if you've ever timed out 6 seconds, that's quite a long time to kiss for. But anyway, so that's what they've sort of found. And that creates, again, an emotional connection. Kerrie mentioned the State of the Union conversation. So that's weekly, having this conversation about how our relationship is going. What are the pitfalls? What's going well, etc. What are your needs, and are they being met, and everything like that. It's also having, and I think this is probably really important for all of us, is having extremely functional conflict.
Yeah.
Because in relationships, obviously, we're not going to agree on everything. We're different people, and in couples therapy, we don't say you have to agree with each other on everything. You're still individuals. But so if conflict is inevitable, we need to be able to have conflict that is functional, right? So this is what the masters do. And just in a nutshell, how they do it, when they're having conflict, they take care of each other. It's not me against you, it's us against the issue, right? We are gentle with each other and soft with each other when we're working through the problem. I don't shut you down. I listen when you're talking. If you're in pain, one of Gottman's sayings is, when you're in pain, my whole world stops and you're the only one in it, type of thing. I seek to understand you. I demonstrate compassion, empathy, and validation, even if I disagree with you. These are the things that anyone can do.
Yeah.
It can be difficult. It can be difficult in the heat of the moment, but these are some of the things that the masters are doing naturally.
I remember from reading some of their work, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but it really hit me, is one of the things I loved them talking about is look for the signs of when someone's making a bid for connection. Yeah. And it might not look like, as you say, the big grand gestures, but it might just be, are you hungry? You know, do you want a cup of tea? It's those little gestures that are also saying, I love you. You mean something to me. And I loved that, because it just brings me an awareness of how many times, you're thinking of me, when you give me a call or a text, or do you know what I mean? And it's just like,
or an emoji.
I
got mad at her once because she wasn't re-emojiing me when I was overseas.
Aww.
And I'm like, I'm sending you all these emojis of love hearts and kisses and stuff, and she's just sending me these straight words, and I'm just going, what? And finally, I said, you got it. I'm reaching out via text, and I'm pressing the emojis.
But then what happened is that I went back through all the text messages, and lo and behold, there were emojis. And I was like, mate, I'm like, well, what's this, and this, and this, and this, and this. It was like we were ships in the night on the emoji train.
What you're talking about there, Ali, is turning towards bids for connection. Yeah. So that whole turning towards that's essential. The other ways you can, and they're not preferable, of course, are the turning away or turning against. So turning away is just ignoring the bid. Turning against is actually turning against your partner, berating them or whatnot for making that bid. But we want to be turning towards, and the masters, I think the statistic is the masters turn towards each other 86% of the time. That's pretty high, pretty high. But the disasters are only turning towards each other 33% of the time. So it's a big difference.
Yeah.
But that's actually what shows your partner, hey, I'm aware of you in my world, and I'm constantly seeking you out. And I'm whenever you're making a bid, I'm looking to meet that emotionally. And so so the turning towards bids is extremely important.
Yeah.
It is challenging to do, though, and I think, again, that can come back to early life experiences. So what we have experienced growing up as bids for connection in our own family of origin can result in us sometimes missing completely that our partner is actually making a bid for a connection. Perfect example is somebody might have grown up in an environment where the way they connected was by being quite playful and joking all of the time. And they might not have been great at sitting down and having deep emotional conversations, but that playful, joking sort of approach was how they tried to connect with family. And so you can then miss that bid for connection and just feel irritated with your partner's joking around, but not realize that they're actually attempting to connect with you. So yeah, it's hard. And I think what you were saying, Ali, was good. You need to sort of like look out for the bids for connection and then return and respond to them, turn towards them.
So I guess that would be alleviated or brought to light through one of these State of the Union chats that you have, and you're going, you don't give me what I'm needing or whatever, and then you go, yeah, but this is the way I do it. Question for you, Al. Did you get, because Ali brought in the State of the Union thing to us, but I'm not sure if you actually pitched it like that. You just said we should actually sit down at a certain time, so it was a weekend thing, and we'll chat about where we're at. Was that from the Gottman Institute?
Yeah. I didn't know. I actually didn't know it was called the State of the Union. I didn't actually
Right. It's a
know
very
that.
American thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but it
President
was
going to be here?
I think it was because we just kept it to 3 questions. It's like, what went really well this week with you and I? What do you, and it was just the way it was phrased. It wasn't like, it wasn't like, when were you a dickhead this week? It was
a lot. A lot.
It's like we changed it to that. We changed it. It was.
I was born a dickhead.
Yeah,
no,
honey. It was. Yeah. What wasn't working, and what do you? And then we finished with what do you want more of? What more do you want? So, and I really liked that finishing with that, because then it still finished on a positive.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And I think the other thing that is added in the State of the Union that's really important and grossly underestimated how important this is sharing fondness and admiration and appreciation.
Yes.
So, like, actually, and this is one of the big things that we have to teach people, is it's not enough to think nice thoughts about your partner. We are all inherently actually quite insecure. So if I'm not hearing from you that you approve of me, that you like me, that you appreciate me, that you value me, I start to doubt whether or not those things are true. And so that's something we do a lot of when we're dating. We tell each other what we like about each other a lot. But that's one of the things that masters do, and we encourage that in the State of the Union as well. Like, started off with not only what did we do well as a couple, but hey, I've been looking at you and here's a situation. I saw you get down and play with our little daughter when she fell over and hurt her knee, and I just looked at how comforted she was by your beautiful hug, and I'm so glad that you're her dad. Like, it's those sorts of things that you actually have to say out loud to people, because that really, really strengthens a relationship.
Yeah.
What do you say to cynics? You must come up against people in therapy who've come in, like the husband or the partner's been dragged in by the other person, and they're just going, I just don't, that's not necessary. Why do I have to say that? Why, and are they like the hard edge, the hard shell people, and then you bust through them and then they're 45 minutes, they're crumbled. But how do you deal with those cynics? What do you do? Because I sometimes feel that myself. In fact, as we're talking, I'm going, I don't want to have a State of the Union thing. I don't want to have to. I can think of half my golf buddies up there on the hill would just be like, dude, just relax, go and have a beer.
Yeah.
So how do you crack that egg?
Really good question, and we do come up against that. It's not just males, right? It's
sure.
Females as well. But it comes. Look, I think it comes down to the concept of what we call meta emotions. Meta emotions, and really it just means that how well how much the person or the individual and the relationship, how much does it place on talking about how we feel to each other? It's the importance that we place on how much or how we're talking about how we feel about each other, or talking about how we feel to each other. Sorry, I should say. And a lot of us have what we call low meta emotions, meaning that we don't place importance on talking about how we feel because of the way, going back to what we talked about, our attachment styles, about the way we were taught about or not taught about our emotions. So some of us are, and a lot of your listeners will probably relate to this, that we weren't raised to acknowledge that emotions are important. We weren't nurtured in our emotions. Some of us might have even been told that our emotions are wrong. We shouldn't have them, and we shouldn't feel that. We should feel something else. or no, that's not okay. You're a big boy or girl. You shouldn't cry. All that sort of stuff. I mean, this is quite common in
Yeah.
people. And so when we grow, into adults and we have adult relationships, we carry that with us, and we've never been able to understand what our emotions actually are, and so therefore we're uncomfortable with talking about emotions, especially our negative emotions. So we shut them down, right? And then we sort of say, well, why do I have to say that? Why can't we all just get along? Why can't we just, no, look, that's okay. Don't worry, you're too sensitive. It's all right.
Yeah.
There's no problem here. But it comes down to how comfortable do we feel in ourselves about talking about emotions. And if we assess, an individual or a couple that are low in meta emotions, we do a lot of work to teach them how to talk about emotions and teach them about the importance of feelings. And when you actually are able to express your vulnerable feelings to each other, your vulnerable emotional needs to each other, and the other person actually hears that and validates that and says, well, that makes a lot of sense, and I want that for you, then that teaches them and reinforces for them that's okay to have emotions. It's okay to tell my partner, it's safe to tell my partner that I feel this, even if it's a negative emotion. So, but that's
quite an adult. It's quite an adult thing, though, isn't it, Adrian? Because if I know for me and my family, we were not brought up to be speaking emotions, and I know my mum and dad have railed against me in the last 25, 30 years. God, Cam, you talk too much, or you get too emotional or deep, or just that sort of stuff. So it's not really supported, yet it is supported when the byproduct of it comes out, and it's been a better result. So though I find that's been my training, that's almost like a default thing. So if I'm not in the adult mind, in the grown-up Cam version of me, if I'm back, I can be, I saw an image of, actually sent it to someone today of a grown man sucking on a dummy, and it's like this, this childish way of being. If I feel like that, I can easily drift back into that attitude of, we don't need to talk. I'd rather not. I'd rather not. So that's what I mean. It takes a conscious mind and an adult intention to say, I know most of the time I want to have a better relationship. I want to be seen. I want to have my needs met. So there's this constant push me, pull you. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of our listeners, I would hope. I don't think I'm an island here, but I think a lot of people would relate to that. Is that your experience too?
Absolutely. I think that we just really grossly underestimate how important our emotional world is. And we live in a culture, I think, where it's easy to make fun of emotions. Like, I think that's a huge part of it as well. But I think that when you get people into couples therapy and you can actually help them very much experience emotional connection with a therapist and then with their partner, that is transformative. Like, it is, I call it magic. Like, I'm on a high after sessions when I have a session of what we call an engaged emotional encounter, where I talk about two hearts meeting. And often it's not even a lot of words that need to be said in those moments, but it's like the look in someone's eyes when they can look into their partner's eyes and actually see and feel their pain. And when we receive that sort of care, like, we're seen on a very deep level, we're known on a very deep level, and our pain and hurt makes sense to another person. There is nothing like that. The toughest man will crumble under that. The hardest woman will crumble under that, and not crumble in a bad way, but in a way of like, this is what I'm longing for. This is what all human beings are longing for, like deep emotional connection, truly being seen, known, and cared for by another human being. And that transforms people. And then you see people going, all right, what's the name of that book you're telling me about? How can we do this? What courses can we come to? And they literally turn a corner, complete corner. It's just, It's magic. I can't explain it. I
Oh.
love it.
And I just see that working across the board, you know, as a parent to the child, as your girlfriend, you know, as your sisters or wherever you're having relationship. As you said, everyone wants to be seen and heard, as particularly in their vulnerable emotions. And working with kids like I do, I've got there's one girl in my class particularly who I work with, and she's special needs, but at the same time she's so special because she will look at me and she'll go, I am feeling really angry right now and it is building in my body and I've got to scream. And it's like, all right, we're going outside to scream. And I'm like, imagine if we could all say things like that. So good. So
That's
good.
beautiful.
I know, right? She's been taught either by her mum or her therapist, God love her.
Yeah.
But I just love that. I'm like, wow, if we could all just be that expressive from such a young age, you know, we'd be a lot more connected than probably, you know, a lot of us are not. But yeah, I love it.
It's the innocence, you know, of children, isn't it? You know,
Yes.
before we're corrupted by the world, you know, or the adult world type of thing, you know. But I just wanted to just sort of go back to what you said, Cam, before about that fear. You know, you were mentioning that fear, and because of that fear and the hurts from childhood, right, we build this shell around us, right, and it's and that shell tells us not to be vulnerable, right, because every time I was vulnerable as a child, I was not given love. In fact, love was taken away from me, or I was punished for that, or I was abused, things like that, right? And so what happens is that shell stays with us. And when we get those types of people who've been so hurt in therapy, no way they're going to just, or at a whim, just say, oh, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable now, right? With a complete stranger, you know, in the worst time of my life, in my relationship. So, but what couples therapy is about, it's about showing that hurt individual that their partner is their source of safety and their source of comfort, right? And it might not be that way right at the start of therapy. They might have hurt each other so much and there's so much distrust and betrayal there. But our job as therapists is to be able to create that, what, you know, we would call secure attachment, right, between the two individuals. And once we reach secure attachment, then each party feels able to be vulnerable with each other, aren't they? You know, and then meta emotions can build, and then they can emotionally reconnect, and that's where it just blossoms. So it is coming right back to that fear stuff of childhood, and undoing that, I guess, within the therapeutic situation.
And it might, if I can just add, because I think this would be something really helpful for your listeners to understand, is that the fear is really profound. Like it's on a visceral level. Like it's like a phobia, you know, like some people are just so distressed or uncomfortable with any feelings of vulnerability that they can actually become completely mute, like unable to speak when they get overwhelmed with emotion. And that obviously for the person that's trying to connect with them is really challenging. But we also really have to understand that the person who hasn't been really guided on how to get in touch with their emotions, like they're in a lot of distress when they're shut down. They're very, very overwhelmed and they're very uncomfortable. And if you can think of your worst fear, like mine would be walking to the edge of a cliff, and just jumping off. Like that's what we're asking people to do when we're asking them to talk about their emotions. And we don't give that enough credit. Yeah, how hard that is.
If you're in a relationship with someone who, okay, you recognize this person is completely shut down to having a vulnerable conversation about their feelings because, okay, now I understand it's about fear. What would I do then? How do I support that person to have a conversation about their feelings?
Well, you're asking the right person because I'm married to the guy.
Is that right? Is that something you guys go through?
No, look, yes, your friendly neighbourhood psychologists also have problems. Right?
Of course, you're human.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And look, we all struggle, right?
Yeah.
And no, I'm not comfortable with talking about emotions in my personal life. I'm great at, you know, my therapy stuff because it's other people's emotions, right? You know, I can guide them through that.
Yeah.
But just to feel my own, that's difficult for me. And, you know, through all the stuff that we've learned, you know, as professionals, but also growing in our emotional connection as a married couple. And Kerrie Kerrie's a natural at this stuff, right? She really is, and she lives and breathes this stuff. I've learned a lot from her, personally, and she's provided me with a secure base, emotionally, so that when emotions come up for me, especially those difficult, painful emotions and negative emotions, when I start to feel that, my natural instinct is to withdraw into myself.
Yeah.
And that's because of my stuff, my baggage that I'm carrying from childhood and everything like that. But what has helped me is that being married to Kerrie, and she loves to talk about her own emotions in a very articulate way. She will encourage me to do that, but she does it gently. And with that gentleness comes this realization that, okay, well, here's someone here who's willing to see me, hear me, and understand me without judgment, right? Without any sort of repercussions for feeling the way I feel, even if it's a negative emotion. And that provides me with a secure base to go, okay, so emotions are actually okay, and they're not these things I should hide away and be ashamed of. They are things that are naturally occurring within me and are going to be encouraged by the one that I love and the one who loves me, and therefore I'm more willing to. I feel empowered enough to be able to be open about those, and to receive validation and compassion and unconditional love. And that's how that works. And that's what brings that type of person with difficulties with emotions and difficulties with meta emotions to talk freely and openly, only with people that you trust, though. You feel secure with.
Right. I'm glad you said that, Adrian, with people you trust, because some of us tend to overshare with people that you kind of go, why are they telling me this? They don't know me from Adam. I also have that with my charity, my men's team, and we have our team, and we'll be, and this has been the tricky thing, is to get men to come and share what's going on, share their life in that way. But I always encourage guys, just do as much as you're comfortable with, and it's going to take a little time to learn to trust this group. They may be friends, but they also may be strangers. But I think it's really important to hold in, what is sacred to you until you have that trust and in yourself, and that it's reflected with the people that you're sharing it with.
Absolutely.
Coming back to what you were saying, Ali, about like, what do you do if you've got a partner who withdraws a lot? I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we actually see as a problem in couples therapy, is something that is termed the distance of pursuer dynamic. So that's a dynamic where we've got one party, and in our relationship that would be me, who's in pursuit of, let's sit down, let's talk about our feelings, let's talk about this issue, let's try and sort this out. And then we've got one person who is the distancer or with the withdrawer. So any sign of conflict, they just retreat and withdraw. And so the important thing is not to get caught up in the distancer pursuer dynamic, because the more the pursuer pursues, the more the distancer distances, and the more the distancer distances, the more it initiates or promotes the pursuer to get in pursuit. So we've just got to recognize that that's the dynamic that might be happening in our relationship. Adrian was very kind with some of the things that he has said about me, and I hope that most of it's true, but we've definitely had our distance or pursuer dynamic. There's, really valid reasons why Adrian withdraws and shuts down in conflict that make a lot of sense to me, but likewise there's very valid reasons from my early life why I pursue conflict and why I don't want to leave things undone. And I think that's a very, very important thing for people to understand, is that there's a reason why. There's a reason behind it. And the most beautiful thing that I see really come about when we unpack the distance of pursuer dynamic is the pursuer is actually trying to restore connection. And the distancer is actually trying to preserve the connection that's there without making it get any worse. So it's so beautiful when people actually can see we're after the same thing. We're just trying to do it in a different way. That's a really helpful thing for people to understand. Try not to get caught up in the dynamic that exists there, and remember that you're trying to go for the same goal, which is that connection.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is cool.
I've never heard that described like that.
No,
That's gorgeous.
and I've never. So just as a on a work level, do you use those terms like distance to pursue a dynamic with your
100%,
clients?
yeah.
Do you use that?
Yeah.
Does that and that
Yeah.
doesn't push them away, going, oh, mate, this is too bloody weird.
Nah.
By the time you're introducing those terms, you've got a pretty good rapport with them.
Okay.
And the process in which we take them through is very gentle.
Yeah.
And it's non-blaming. You don't point fingers at anyone. In
right.
therapy.
That's important.
It's very non. It's confrontational in the sense that we do have to elicit emotions out of people and help them through those, but it's non-confrontational so far as it's non-blaming. So when we reach that time where we're talking about those types of terms, say for example, they already know what that means.
Yeah.
They already know the background to all that. We've developed a very good rapport and whatnot. So they're usually very, very receptive to that, and
it's quite validating for them. I think that's really, so many people are like, oh, so this is a thing. I'm like, yep, it's a thing. Like,
right.
We know the thing pretty well.
The way I understand it now is exactly what I was sort of referring to with my mum and dad, you know, before, just going, here's me pursuing an emotional connection and them distancing, going, we want to keep our connection, so don't rattle the cage.
Yeah.
Just nice. We don't want to have problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I was just going to say too, just as you were speaking, is that what I also love about the work that you both do and the therapy work is that you actually don't necessarily need to have the partners in there together. You can actually change the relationship just by one person. And I think that's sometimes what people forget, that they go, oh, I can't get my partner to come with me to relationship therapy. And while it may fast track it and be better, just you can actually make a difference in the relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, once you discover the needs of yourself and perhaps the needs of your partner through doing the work with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we've got two businesses. So Motivating Minds, we do a lot of individual therapy, and then Motivating Marriages, which is our sister company that grew out of Motivating Minds, is where we do all our couple and parenting work. And so definitely if people are aware that they're struggling interpersonally, so with relationships, be it with their partner, their children, colleagues, friendships, they can definitely see an individual psychologist and do some phenomenal work at learning about themselves and relationships, and develop the skills they need to become more interpersonally effective in their relationship.
Yeah, great. Oh, we could talk forever. This is so interesting, but we do need to get to the shower, honey.
You ready for the shower, you two?
So we do something called a 2-minute shower, and this is where we just ask you a series of questions, and so keep your answers short, one word, but if you need a few more words, we allow that as well. So we will ask the same question to both of you.
Who's funnier?
Oh, that's a hard one. We both think we're funny.
We're both equally funny.
It's a tie.
Okay, we're having a bit of a longer shower. How important is humor in a relationship?
Massively important.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Agreed. What is your partner's basic philosophy in life?
Kerrie's is to pretty much love everyone, forgive people, and see people for who they are, not just the good, but also the not so great as well, and to be accepting. And it sums you up, I think.
Yeah. Adrian's, I think, would be, if you're going to do something, do it right and do it well. Yeah.
I agree with that.
What do you miss when you're not together?
Kerrie's a very big presence, but you wouldn't know that outside of the home, but she's really big presence in our marriage. And when she's not there, it's just I just miss you. She's just not there, and I just miss a lot about her actually. Yeah.
I probably miss the comfort and safety of Adrian. He's very stable and very comfortable and safe. The world feels safe with him.
Nice. What the world needs more of is
People really seeing and knowing one another on a deep empathic level. Yeah.
You took my answer. That's pretty much the same as me. Yeah.
Ditto.
People need to be able. Yeah.
Can I just ask another question? Just as on that, what part does technology and do you see a part for phones and things like that in that getting to know each other really well?
It's definitely a distraction.
It's a huge distraction.
And in one of the workshops we run, the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, it actually has a section on there to help couples to ward against that because it is a big problem.
Is that chapter called "Put Your Bloody Phone Down"?
Yeah, it could be. And I think it creates such a false illusion. I think that's my heartache when it comes to anything social media. Like, there's just such a false illusion. Even the stories you hear of people's heartaches usually has like this filter around it, whereas, you know, at the end of the day, we're all just quite vulnerable and messy, and we've got heartache, we've got pain, and it'd be nice to just be real about that.
There's a song in that. I'm going to write that down. Heartache is pain.
I'll ask. Do you want to ask the last question?
You can ask it.
Okay, last question. Describe each other in one word.
Oh, I think I need more.
You can take more. It's okay.
Yeah. Tenacious is one that comes to mind. Really extremely. Kerrie will just go for it. So if she wants something, she'll just go for it. There's no stopping it.
One word. It has to be 2. Beautiful heart.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love it.
We can push
Love
those
that.
together.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adrian and Kerrie, for your time. That was so interesting, and you've clearly got a lot of knowledge, and clearly the kindness of who you both are comes shining through in the way you talk about your clients and the work that you do. So thank you so much for this chat.
Thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you both.
That's what's my defense.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
It sounded like you had a lot of personal things sort of get.
Well, you know, I'm
up
back
in a
on the
way.
therapy train.
Yeah.
So I'm actually diving into some things, and so
Okay, that's where some of those
Yeah.
questions were coming from, right?
Yeah, well, they're just things have sort of just a bit up for me in that way, and so it was just lovely to speak. And one of the things that's been, I guess, pointed out to me is after doing therapy for many years is how much I hide behind labels. And
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense why
yeah.
you were asking those questions.
yeah, and it's like, well, what does that actually mean? You know, I'm like, oh, well, this and this, and the therapist is like, yeah, but that seems like a bit of gobbledygook, and I'm like, oh shit.
Right.
So it's really been great
Yep.
for me to get to the true kernel of what it is that I'm feeling.
Yep.
And that's when I said, you know, about fear. Going, wow, I still live with a whole lot of fear. So I'm unraveling that for myself. So,
Yep.
but when she talked,
yeah.
when they mentioned the distance pursuer dynamic, I'm like, oh God, no, I don't need another label to describe something.
Right.
Though what they were actually describing was quite brilliant.
Yeah.
In that, you know, someone's running away from someone who's trying to actually pursue
Yeah.
depth. And I think we can have a long chat about this afterwards. Because I reckon we're prime candidates in our own way for it, which
absolutely.
is just great. I don't mind opening up that can of worms with you, because at the end of the day, what I do know from our work together and our therapy and our chats, that we always are way closer.
Oh yeah.
As a result.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. The pain of going, oh, do we have to talk about this? Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's always
It's
better
worth it.
afterwards. And I love the thing, you know, just those small things that they said about, you know, what difference can we make in our relationships now? And that was small things often.
Yeah.
6-second kiss.
Yeah. Yeah, which we did the other day.
Yes, I know.
And we haven't spoken about it.
This is my Gottman
Honey,
thing.
It was so sweet. And I loved it.
And
I'm like, who are you?
And functional conflict as well. All of those. I know that's another label, but they did explain it. No, they explained it really well.
Okay,
they
I have to go back
explained it
in the
really
chat.
well. Just the gentleness of understanding conflict and where it comes from. And so it's, to me, that was like, don't call names. You know what I mean? Like, it was just being able to have conflict but make it functional so you don't end up more torn apart than where you started. So that's the way I took it, though. There was just a simplicity to how they were talking about relationships and therapy, and it was just really beautiful.
I agree. And the fact that they said that humour is a big part of it, and I know I often will lead into a joke to not feel the profundity or vulnerability, what's actually going on, though humour is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it's not a power leak.
Yeah.
You know.
Or used to push away.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
What a great way to start the year.
Yes.
For those of us desiring relationship, for those of us dealing with the end of a relationship, what great information to have at the beginning of the year when you're setting goals or...
if you're single or, you know, where can you use it with your person at work or your best friend or
it doesn't need to be a lover.
So it fits in everywhere.
I hope you enjoyed it, listener. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and because I certainly did, got a lot out of it. I think there'll be a re-listen and more 6-second kisses, more small things often, and more State of the Union speeches or not speeches, conversations.
That's right. Barack Obama, here we come.
Yeah. Okay. So till next time on Separate Bathrooms, please be kind to each other and be safe.
Thanks for listening.